From Ashburn, Virginia, this is the 10th Congressional District Republican Candidate Forum. Brought to you by the Loudoun County Republican Committee. Your candidates are Manga Anantatmula, Mike Clancy, and Alex Isaac. Moderated by WMAL Radio's Vince Colonnese.
Thank you very, very much. So great to be here. Nice to see all of these great patriots. Please have a seat. Let's see here. I'll begin. The core question here is, what distinguishes you? This is essentially your opening statement, but what distinguishes you in terms of why you should become the nominee for the 10th District, how it is you're going to win the general election? What distinguishes you in that way? Manga, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to go first. I think that microphone, is it on? Yes, it's on.
Good morning, everybody. God bless America. Today we are just not here. Forum. Today we are making a progress and a decision for United States of America, for America First agenda. I'm Manga Anantatmula, as he had already introduced. I'm the only key member who fought affirmative action against Harvard University. And that was a 9.5 long year battle, and I did not give up because that was essential, and that was one of our core values and constitutional rights for equal rights, and everybody must get that opportunity, and I could not take that discrimination. And we overturned it in the US Supreme Court. That's when I decided to move to North Carolina to start living with my husband, because I was in a long distance relationship only in that case. And I did it. I am a fighter. That's what I do when I believe in. Today I believe in legal immigration. No more illegal immigration. I'm going to fight it. And I'm closing the borders. No more illegal immigrants. And I'm going to fight for our Constitution and all our constitutional values. And that's what I do. And I promise you that I will be your fighter, and I will never give up. And like I never gave up on winning the affirmative action.
Manga, thank you for that. By the way, just want to make sure, just to check for my own, I did say 2 minutes at the outset. Are we doing a minute 30 per? Okay, minute 30 for the opening statement. All right, Mike, please, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Clancy, and my strength is that I care, and that's reflected to restore America. I'm a servant leader. I show up, and I put service before self, and I've showed up time and time again for this community. In fact, just last night at the school board. And I served on our Republican legal team, monitoring our elections here in Loudoun County. In this race that brings the skill set, the experience, and the expertise to win in November. I'm the lawyer in this race. I've studied constitutional law. I have legislative experience. I'm the candidate in this race that's been a senior executive with a global company, leading a team responsible for a multi-business that focuses on our national security. And I had the honor of serving on Governor Youngkin's technology and cybersecurity transition team when he was elected. And I've been fighting the radical left as a conservative commentator with Newsmax and the Daily Caller. I will defeat the Democrats. I will go to work for you on day one. And together we'll win, and together we'll restore America. Thank you.
Mike, thank you very much. Mr. Isaac, Alex Isaac, please, sir.
Thanks, Vince. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. My name is Alex Isaac for Congress. I'm not a politician. I served our military for 23 years. 4 months ago, the last thing on my mind was this journey of running for office, to go back into public service. Some of you this morning have even asked, why are you going back into public service? And the real answer is, I have an opportunity to read and understand what our adversaries are doing. And I am tired of sitting on the sideline, watching countries like China, watching come into the United States, rolling us up. And based on our behavior, I cannot sit on the sideline and continue to take pot shots at this administration without doing something about it. Where I stand on a variety of issues, from babies to immigration to school choice, and obviously to guns, which are very much on people's mind. All these issues, happy to talk about those today. I am the candidate that can win in the fall. I come from immigrant parents who came to this country legally. The folks that we to our camp are exactly like my parents. They hear that, and they understand that, and I appreciate this opportunity to introduce myself to all of you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Now, in the interest of changing the order here, I'm going to start with, and this is 2 minutes per respondent. Alex Isaac, you can go first here. The 10th Congressional District has become probably one of the most infamous battlegrounds for education in the United States of America. And that's because of the rapid encroachment of the left on our children, and certainly parents who've been working to fight back against that. Should you win, what do you intend to do to help parents take back these schools from this leftist indoctrination?
Yeah. Sorry. No, thanks. Thanks. No, thanks, Vince. That's a great question. You know, a lot of these issues, such as what's happening in our schools, are very local issues. Running for Congress, some would think that, well, that's not a congressional issue, that's not a federal issue, but I see it a little differently. I believe that we should get back to academic excellence. What does that mean? We're distracted by a number of these social issues that our schools, our parents are facing. It permeates, it goes into our immigrant population. The folks here in this county who come from other countries, as an example, are terrified when they send their children to school and they no longer have their eyes on their kids based on their color. And they hear about things such as fentanyl in the schools, or they hear about sex issues or pornography. You know, it's interesting on the pornography issue. You know, pornography is such a taboo word. I asked that question when I started on this journey. And I had a consultant at the time who actually showed me what this meant, the cartoon. That liberal agenda is being communicated to children in schools. And when I looked at it, I was shocked. I mean, my children are older. My oldest is a 30-year-old Army captain in the nursing corps, and our kids, you know, we've not seen this type of and literature in school. It's not even literature. It's porn. And I just thought it was, I looked at my wife and said, this is inappropriate. So from a federal level, what we need to do is set the conditions to support our state, our governor, and local leaders. And I think we have a number of local leaders here very much advocating that this type of behavior and material needs to get out. Our adversaries are studying and learning faster than we are. Our allies are learning faster than we are. And we cannot defeat these adversaries with all of these distractions plaguing us.
Mr. Isaac, thank you very much. Mike Clancy, sir.
Thank you, Vince. We're getting education back on the right track and the right focus on academics is critical to restoring America. My wife, Lynn, and I are parents of 4 sons. And you can imagine with the 4 boys running around the house, it was sort of controlled chaos in our home. What my legislative priorities in Congress are, first, parents' rights legislation. There was a parents' rights bill in 2023. Every single Democrat voted against it. Of course they did. When I go to Congress, I want to work with my Republican colleagues and hopefully a few common and pass that parents' rights legislation. And I made that pledge to the Moms for Liberty, and I'm the only candidate that's made that pledge. And now the Democrats are calling me a Moms for Liberty extremist, which I take as a badge of honor. Second, I want to attack DEI. I want all DEI mandates, all DEI programs, all DEI funding from the Department of Education, and shrink down that Department of Education to non-existence and transfer all the authority, control, and management of education back to the state and local governments where it belongs so that you have control over the education of the schools. Third, I want a tax credit to support school choice and home schooling. Parents deserve the right to make the decision of what's best for their children's education, what environment is best. And finally, I want to address workforce education. Right now, Pell Grants for low-income families are restricted to college tuition, but college tuition is not for everyone. I want to expand Pell Grants to cover trade schools and vocational training programs. Key principles in Congress: we will restore America and restore education to its proper focus. Thank you.
Mr. Clancy, thank you. Manga Anantatmula, please.
Back in 2020, when I ran for Congress, I was the first one in Virginia, or you may say in the United States, the first one to start school choice with coupons. The money follows the parents where they want to take their children to educate them. That was my agenda since 2020. I have never given up, and I will make it happen as your. And I've also been saying since 2020 that I will get rid of Department of Education. In my entire experience fighting against affirmative action, we have been dealing with Department of Education back and forth. And nobody knows Department of Education how much of a waste it is, more than I do. Show no mercy. Department of Education is going when I become your Congresswoman. And somebody had sent me, okay, what about the religious studies? All the wrong propaganda is being taught in our schools, and that's where the hate for each other is starting. No more hate education in our schools, and that should become law for the schools for mandate to trickle down to states. And the states are not above the federal laws. No hate education for our children. We must, with the school choice, we will open up other education and religious studies that information is, and love and respect will be taught. And then meritocracy. That's all my fight was for. That's what I got overturned. Because nobody wanted to have meritocracy, and that will stay. Not only have U.S. Supreme Court to say that, we will have a legislation to do it.
Thank you, Ms. Anantatmula. Thank you very much. All right, now we move into the topic of energy. America's power grid is old. It's projected to fall short of rapidly growing energy demands within a decade. What vision for energy production and distribution in the United States? How do we handle this? We'll start, Ms. Anantatmula, with your response. How do we handle America's energy problems?
This administration, on the first day, they closed oil drilling. We will restore it. We will not be depending on other countries to give us oil. And that's where I think people are trying to control us, and we will be refusing to have that control of others over us. We will drill our own oil. And what is it about going electric? No, that's not the way to do it, and we will have our fossil fuels, and we will not allow only electrical cars. People, we are not going to restrict them either. If people have the choice, I will leave that choice on the table, but then fossil fuels are to stay.
Thank you, Ms. Anantatmula. Mr. Clancy, sir, your time.
A robust energy grid is critical to support our economy, our growing economy, and is critical to restoring America. A two-part problem here. Not really, well, we have tremendous demand on energy because of growth, the growth of technology, the growth of cloud technology, the growth of AI technology. And we need the energy grid to support that economic growth. At the same time, The Democrats have been choking our energy with their green energy incentives and their green energy agenda. We cannot support our economy with solar power and wind power. Just look what's happened in California. 1 week, Gavin Newsom signed a law mandating 100% electric vehicles in California. The very next week, he was out in the press asking EV owners not to charge their vehicles because it would take down the grid. It's absolutely absurd. We need an all-the-above energy policy. Fossil fuels and natural gas. We need nuclear power to supplement anything we're doing with solar power and wind energy. And I had some discussions with a business executive, and his company is innovating energy by leveraging hydrogen. So that's just a case study of how America solve this energy problem. And we need this all-the-above energy policy. We need to restore a full all-of-the-above energy policy to make this work for our economy and to make this work for our country. Thank you.
Mr. Clancy, thank you. Your 2 minutes on energy.
Yep. I see it similar but a little bit different, and here's how we differ. When we talk about energy and we talk about the grid, absolutely correct. CPU, GPUs that are being used, this technology with supporting, very much involved with that on a day-to-day basis. When I leave here, I'll be going and having those kind of conversations. But I see it a little bit differently. I see data centers. I see companies that Mr. Clancy works for today building these types of monstrosities within as energy drains. And they're just like communities that developers build in our poorly designed infrastructure. Many difficulties that we're facing. Power, relying on power that's coming out from other. We're not just talking about oil reserves and tapping our natural resources. That's very much part of it. It is about how we're affecting communities today, and not to just be focused on data centers. These data centers, though, are sitting in our community, and they're ugly, right? They're alternatives, and they're drawing so much power, okay? I come from the tech world. I see the value of having this capability. It's just going to continue to grow. So what are we going to do? What's the plan? What's our strategy? How is that nested within our overall national strategy? We don't have one. This, right, and the leaders, the weak leaders that we have, right, cannot figure out how to do this correctly. And their plan is a short-term, mid-term, 4-year presidential plan, not a long-term plan, not a plan like we used to have. When we talk about Make America, we're talking about rebuilding or building again our infrastructure like the highways and so forth. We need to think about that kind of.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Isaac. We'll return to you now on the next question. Now we move to international affairs. And as a member of Congress, this, of course, will be in your purview. The big one, the Middle East. What is an appropriate Middle East policy for the United States? How should we contemplate that region, and to what extent, how do we think about America's needs in that region?
No, that's great. I have a personal interest in studying the Middle East my entire life. As some of you may know, my father immigrated from Iraq. He is an Assyrian Christian. My mother was born in Bethlehem. She is Greek Orthodox, a Palestinian. I have looked at this issue every deployment, with the exception of my deployment. I've always had some type of interaction, related to my Arabic background. And so our policy in the Middle East is non-existent. And it goes back to kind of our energy policy. We don't have one. We think we do. We think in, again, 2-year term, 4-year presidential, the FIDEP, the 5-year budget cycle. Our adversaries, which in some cases countries like Iran are thinking much longer, 50-year, 100-year. We covet our technology, and we think that they're chess pieces. And what they are, and we think we're We're playing checkers, right? Our adversary is playing the game of Go. Go research it, look it up. I just bought the game. I'm learning how to play it myself so I can think and understand like the adversary. Our Middle East position and strategy should be built around peacemaking. The United States is a leader in morals and ethics. Sometimes we forget that. When my mom asked me, when I was deploying to Iraq and rolling through the streets in the middle of the night with JSOC, that's where I retired from, she asked me, "Are you killing fellow Arabs?" I said, "Yes, yeah, Mom." My mom cared about me. I said, "They do not want to negotiate. We wake up every morning thinking, how can we make the world a better place? Some of those folks wake up thinking, how can we kill people, men, women, and children, and destroy our way of life?" So we need to take a serious look on how we address the Middle East, partner with.
Mr. Isaac, thank you very much. Mr. Clancy, sir, your time.
So the Middle East is obviously a very complicated geopolitical scenario. But I think there's two guiding elements that we need to focus on. First, we have to recognize that Israel is a sovereign nation that has the right to defend, has the right to respond to terrorist attacks, just like we did in 9/11 and just like if Hamas had attacked Leesburg. Second, we need to defang Iran and put it back in a locked box and throw away the key. The firestorm we have in the Middle East is because of Joe Biden. Office, he relaxed the sanctions against Iran. He let them open up their oil business, and they earned tens of billions of dollars selling oil to China. They then turned around and used that money to train and arm Hamas and Hezbollah. Under the prior administration, the Trump administration, there were sanctions in place. Iran was crippled. And what did we see happen during those 4 years? The Abraham Accords. Israel and several Arab nations signed agreements that recognized Israel's sovereignty. And Israel and Saudi Arabia were on the brink of a similar. Hamas launched its terrorist attack, and that was a total manipulation by the puppet master, Iran. Our policy must be to reinstate strict sanctions against Iran, defang their economy, put them back in that box, throw away the key. That's the only way we're going to achieve peace, because Iran is out to export terrorism. So those are the two key principles that need to guide our Middle East policy. Recognize Israel's sovereign right to defend itself and control Iran with strict sanctions. Thank you.
Mike Clancy, thank you. Manga Anantatmula, how should Congress handle the Middle East?
Every country has their right to protect and defend their sovereignty. Coming from India, no than the situations and conditions we live in that geopolitical situation, we know exactly what happens when two countries get into wars. And we have always been in the middle of wars. Every country must have their sovereignty. There is no second question about it. And we must engage with our allies to completely remove the terrorism from the world. Just not where we have interests, but we as the entire globe to get rid of global terrorism. I think that's what is causing most of the problem. We can't be engaging in political reasons all the time. We have to engage with our allies for humanitarian. And Israel has an excellent leader. They can make the best decisions that's good for their people. We don't need to go dictate to other countries what's best for their people. Ask them what they need as humanitarian service. And we don't need to engage in foreign wars. We have to give our support to get rid of terrorism. Whether it is Hamas or whether it is Al-Qaeda, we must engage in getting rid and not anything more than that.
Thank you, Ms. Anantatmula. The next question will stay in the realm of international affairs. The answer here will just be 1 minute allotted. Ms. Anantatmula, it begins with you. This is on the issue of the war in Ukraine. Congress is right now debating another tranche of money to Ukraine. View on continued funding of the war in Ukraine.
I have a simple answer. Not a dime. Thank you.
Mr. Clancy, your time.
Yeah, I think the situation is a little more complicated than that, given the current context of the war. And about 3 weeks ago, from Rob Whitman, and he's on the Armed Services Committee, and we were talking about Ukraine and what is the approach, right? That's what he's focused on. That's what Congress is focused on. And the solution right now, given the context of the war, is weapons, but not welfare. We need to restock our armaments here in the United States, and we need to provide Ukraine. We cannot let a thug like Putin win in Ukraine. At the same time, we need full accountability of every dollar that's gone to Ukraine. So keep in mind that, and the second part of that strategy has to include securing our own border, right? If we're going to help Ukraine secure its border, we better take care of things at home, take care of business at home, and secure our border and protect our national security. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Clancy, thank you. Mr. Isaac, your 1 minute.
Yep. About a month ago, prior to the budget being signed, which recently was approved, the President and the National Security Team had a concept of operation to send additional U.S. troops over to Krakow, Poland, with their equipment, Bradley fighting vehicles, tanks, artillery, and so forth, because the Congress had the funding necessary to move that equipment over and satisfy the Ukrainians' requirements. So the President was going to take action unilaterally on his own and deploy forces, leave the equipment there, and then redeploy forces right after they would equipment. That didn't happen. The budget passed. What we need to understand about supporting Ukraine and being able to provide capability, it's our used equipment that is going over there and the new equipment that's being purchased with these dollars coming from Congress. Very interesting dynamic. Understand that.
Mr. Isaac, thank you very much. Let me move now to national security here in the United States. 2 minutes for these answers. We'll start again on your end of the stage, sir. What are the repercussions to the Commonwealth, to Virginia, of the open border that we currently have? And what could you do in Congress to alleviate of that issue?
The 10th District, Loudoun County in particular, is a little bit different dynamic than what we're seeing in other places. We don't have a safe city construct like they have out in Arizona. People come here to the United States, specifically into this district, this lawful means. And we have laws and we have regulations that are in place to facilitate that. What we do not have is the intestinal fortitude and the backbone to enforce those laws and to empower folks such as CBP, such as HSI, Homeland Security, such as the states that border those areas. And by the way, we have to think, it's not just the southern border. There's a northern border. It's very porous. I've gone hunting up there. I'm from Michigan. I know and understand how people traverse the border area in the Port Huron up here in Michigan, actually up here. So we need to pay attention to how to empower those capabilities we already have and how to embolden and support politically, economically, our state leaders at the governor level, at the state level, down to local law enforcement. Our crime issue, fentanyl coming across, what we're seeing is it's not just coming from the southern border. It's being facilitated by Asia, and it's coming through for Asian operators that are leveraging the cartel system so being able to help enforcement actually do their job and providing them the tools, the toolkit, and the capabilities, again, and the political backbone to support them is how I see we address this.
Mr. Isaac, thank you very much. Mr. Clancy, how does the and how would you handle it?
Securing our border. Whoops. Let him restart his clock.
You got it. The clock was restarted. Now we're good.
Securing our border is a number one priority to restore America. Going door to door in Ashburn several weeks ago, talking to voters, and I encountered one homeowner who said he was an independent. And he said his number one issue is the border. And he went on to say that he's originally from New York City, and he was outraged by what he was seeing in New York City. And he highlighted the incident where the gang of illegal immigrants assaulted that police officer, kicked him while he was on the ground. And in his view, they should have been arrested and immediately deported. But what did the Democrats do? They released them and let them scatter across the country. Well, he was right that they should have been deported, but more importantly, been in the United States to begin with. Joe Biden, the Democrats have operated our southern border as a wide open gateway to massive illegal immigration. It's brought us terrorist threats. It's brought us crime. Think of the terrible, tragic murder of Laken Riley. It has brought us human trafficking, $10 billion business under Joe Biden. And it's brought fentanyl right into our home communities, right here in Loudoun County, right here in Loudoun High School, right in Parkview High School. And Sheriff Chapman has told me that the source of that fentanyl is our southern border. We absolutely must secure the border. Congress. It's called H.R. 2. It's a Republican bill. No Democrat will support it. But that bill provides the physical security and the technology infrastructure and the Border Patrol support that we need to lock down our southern border. And we need to, for illegal this country, we need to transform catch and release to catch and return to sender.
Mr. Clancy, thank you.
One last thing, we got to take care, we got to take care of these sanctuary cities. And in Congress, I will work to terminate all to any sanctuary city.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. Thank you very much. Manga Anantatmula, the open border, how does it affect Virginia? How would you handle it in Congress?
Open borders affects the entire country. That those open borders are a slap on my face because I'm immigrant who stood in line, who came as a legal immigrant and stood in line legally to get my citizenship. And I feel every day I'm being slapped millions of times. That's what is happening with that open border. And I don't want to take these slaps on my face. So to close those borders, may it be physical barriers, technological, or space, however we need to handle it. We must handle and close our borders, and that's important. And that's just not simply creating problems with illegal immigrants. Drug cartels, that's ruining our children's future, the future of America. That we can't let it happen. So just not the legal borders that are bothering, just the legal immigration, it's bothering in our schools. We are going so up fentanyl in our schools with our children. We can't let that happen. And also the money that's flowing in through Chinese illegal immigrants coming through those borders with stashes of money and high-tech gadgets. They come and they Uber. Why are they bringing that many gadgets if they are coming for asylum? Think about it. We are bringing in spies. We are bringing in death. We must close the borders.
Thank you, Ms. Anantatmula. I'll stay at this end of the stage now as I ask you, what is your stance on abortion? And should the federal government have any role in protecting the life of an unborn child?
Definitely, abortion issue has been there for 200 years. It'll be there for another 400 years. And in the election cycle, we are going to have this question. But is it a federal law? I think every state has the right to determine what is best for their state, but there are always certain federal laws that allow certain number of weeks for abortion. Maybe in the case have girls that are the minors in cases of rape and incest, I think we must allow the parents to make that decision for that minor child, because I am fighting for parental rights. If I want to take the right of parents from making the decision, then probably I'm not fighting for parental rights. Let parents decide what is best for their minor child who is pregnant because of incest or rape.
Thank you, Ms. Anantatmula. I did not mention that we're answer to this question. No, you're perfectly fine. I just wanted to make sure to get that out for the other candidates. Now, Mr. Clancy, your time.
So in the first part of the question, I'm pro-life. That's my personal belief. I'm a lawyer. I've actually read the Dobbs decision. And that Dobbs decision did two things. V. Wade. And it also ruled that the abortion decision goes back to the individual states. And we've seen that play out already across our country, from Florida to Texas to Ohio, Kansas, and California, and that's where it should stay. But let's not lose fact of who the extremists are on abortion. It's the Democrats. Every Democrat in the primary for this 10th Congressional District wants unlimited abortion, a national bill of unlimited abortion all the way up to the moment of birth, and they want Vince and Scott and Valerie and everyone in this room to pay for it with their taxpayer dollars. In Congress, I will fight to reject any national legislation like that to provide for unlimited abortion. It should be handled by the states. We don't want people in California or Bernie Sanders or Nancy Pelosi deciding what Virginia should do about abortion.
All right, Mr. Clancy, thank you. Mr. Isaac, your time.
You know, some of those positions are kind of easy to say, but they're hard to live. I'm a father of 3 daughters. I've been married to my wife for 32 years. We have never had to deal with that burden. Our children Catholic, right? There's goodness in that, and there's a lot of guilt with that. My 3 daughters, when I look at them, and I mentioned them before, Army nurse, engineer, a young businesswoman, I trust her decisions. I, as a father with my wife, actually, because I was gone. My wife raised our children. I mean, I was deployed quite a bit. And so how we raised our children to be able to think, to analyze, to make decisions, to hold their head up, to not disgrace the family name, those things were very important. Whatever their decision is, I would support their decision.
All right, Mr. Isaac, thank you. Just a quick show of hands, though. We've talked about federal legislation, the states having control of this. Would you support defunding Planned Parenthood at the federal level? Yes or no? Yeah. Raise your hand or just say yes or give me an answer.
I would, but I am a firm believer in prevention, intervention, and education.
Okay.
And that's key to it.
Mr. Clancy, your view?
Yes, absolutely.
And Ms. Anantatmula?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to check on that. All right, let's see. We'll move to the next issue, the national debt now, because, of course, we're dealing with we'll start at Alex's end of the stage here. On the issue of the national debt, how would you address the broken budget process? Have you noticed Congress doesn't ever pass a real budget in this country that has contributed to all the inflation and this massive, now approaching $35 trillion?
I was talking to someone earlier here this morning. We don't have a revenue generation problem. We have a spending problem. We cannot balance the budget on time. We have a debt ceiling issue. You would never allow, checks or put yourself into debt to the point where, you might lose your home or your credit rating or what have you. That's what we do every day. The revenue issue, again, leaving that aside, the spending issue, we don't have transparency. We don't have accountability. Businesses such as the one that I represent today in the private sector, but more importantly, small businesses. When I met with the Small Business Administration a few weeks back, that is the heart and the lifeblood of our entrepreneurial spirit, small businesses within the America. And many of them will not be assistance this time next year because of the failure of Congress to enact a budget on time.
Mr. Isaac, thank you. 1 minute is allotted for this question. Mr. Clancy, your time, sir.
Well, it's a big issue to cover in 1 minute, obviously, but we got to get back to the regular order of handling our budget process, agency by agency bills. And we need to be guided, Congress needs to be guided by a balanced budget perspective. In Virginia, right now, the General Assembly and the governor are negotiating to get to a balanced budget. The federal government should be doing the exact same thing. And second, we've got to rein in the reckless spending. The $1 trillion that Biden is spending on his green infrastructure, his EV mandates, and all the rest of it. If every single person in this country owned an EV vehicle, it would change emissions by 0.02%, carbon emissions. And it would impact the temperature by 0.01. These are nonsensical policies, and government should not be spending that kind of money trying to pick and choose who they'll invest in for industry. Let's unleash American enterprise, pro-growth policies. That's how we run this economy.
Mr. Clancy. Ms. Anantatmula. Thank you. Ms. Anantatmula, how would you tackle the national debt in only 60 seconds? Please go.
We must stop engaging in foreign wars. We are spending unlimited amount of money in. Why are we spending in Ukraine? Why are we spending in other places where we don't need to be? And why are we having these EV mandates like Clancy said? These are the policies that I think we must, as future congressmen and women, we must tackle. No to this nonsense mandates and nonsense spending, and there is no transparency. And small businesses is the way to go. I have been saying this for a very long time. 47% of our U.S. economy depends on small businesses, and we are killing the small business. So where is this economy going by killing the small businesses? It's time that we focus on small businesses. Let us help the small businesses. Let us help them grow. Let's give them tax credits for small businesses. And that's the way to grow our economy.
Thank you. Ms. Anantatmula, thank you very much. I want to now move to the issue of the deep state. Again, we'll start at your end of the stage. 1 minute here for each of your answers. As we speak, Congress is currently debating reauthorizing powers that have been routinely abused to spy on American citizens without any warrant process whatsoever. What, if elected, will you rein in the power and the cost of this unelected bureaucracy and the regulatory state right here in the federal government? Ms. Anantatmula.
Look at what is happening to our former President Trump. We cannot turn a blind eye to what is. Then that explains what these mandates and what the DOJ is doing. If that is happening to a former president, and imagine for common people like you and I, we do not have the right of speech. That's gone. Mention anything, you are blocked. Look at Facebook. No right of speech. And the platforms are becoming more and more restrictive, and we need to stop that because that's our constitutional right, and we must have a handle on DOJ, that is all these judges who are supposed to recruit themselves from certain cases, but they keep doing this to protect their own families. We can't be doing that, and we cannot allow as American citizens to happen this to us.
Thank you, Ms. Anantatmula. Mr. Isaac, sir. Excuse me, Mr. Clancy, it is your time.
Question of regulatory state.
Yeah. Yes, sir, on the deep state. How would you tackle it?
Right. So under Biden, the bureaucracy has been on steroids. Just on appliances, the Biden administration has issued 300 regulations. And I had lunch the other day with the chief growth officer for a medium-sized company. He's a government contractor in the security space. And he told me that over the past 4 years, his company's cost of regulatory compliance has increased fivefold, 500%. to business, devastating especially to small business. Congress needs to take control. The Constitution says Congress has exclusive authority to legislate and appropriate money. There's a bill in Congress, it's called the REINS Act. Every Democrat opposes it, but this bill would require Congress to major regulations being issued by agencies before they could become the law. This puts Congress back in control where it should be, and I will work with Republicans to pass that legislation in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. Mr. Isaac, your minute.
Yeah. The current administration is a caretaker administration. They were brought in as a replacement to the Trump administration. Disagree with that. They're doing a terrible job, very Machiavellian. Their attitude is sit down. We know how to run government. How that's happened, right? Look at the clownery of our withdrawal from Afghanistan, okay? I used to sit in the intelligence community. I used to sit in different agencies. I prescribe that we have good laws. I go back kind of to the immigration mindset. We're not using them. We have things such as the Pen Registry Trap and Trace, PRTT, that was designed to be able to go after terrorists and so forth to protect the homeland. That's being abused, and we need to rein that in through oversight. Very simple. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now, again, we'll stay on your end as we go to a multiple choice question, if you're ready for this.
C.
If you could wave a magic wand and enact just one of the following three options, which would it be and why? I'll let you have a moment to think about it. The three are prohibit members of Congress from insider trading, term limits, or mandatory mental health checks for members of Congress.
Can I pick one and then talk about it?
It's your 30 seconds.
Okay.
Use it the way you like.
So the first one, term limits. I find term limits very interesting. There are that don't like term limits. Why don't they like term limits? Because as soon as they get their guy or gal in, right, they want to keep them in to support their position. I like term limits because I go back to the original Founding Fathers construct, get in, get it done, be quick, get out. That means 3-4 terms to figure out. I'm shovel ready to go into some of these committees today.
Amen. Well, the only downside of term limits is we lose Sheila Jackson Lee. You know?
True.
So there is a downside, apparently.
Well,
okay.
now we know the moon is made of gas.
Yes, the moon is made of gas, as we learned. She's on the science committee.
No show topic.
Trust me, I spent an hour on it yesterday. Mr. Clancy, your time, what would you prefer? Stop Congress from insider trading, mandatory term limits, or mental health checks for members of Congress?
That's an interesting set of choices. I would go with term limits. Part of the problem we have in Congress is career politicians who why they're there, which is to show up and serve you, the American people, serve their constituents and work for their constituents. I also feel like term limits will help mitigate the insider trading problem, because if members of Congress aren't there for 20 years, they can't benefit and from the insider trading. So I think term limits out of those three. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Anantatmula, your preference from this theoretical exercise?
Term limits also, because they have become a swamp, being there for good for the rest of their life. They want to die in the, even though they cannot think, they keep blanking out. Sorry, term limits. And with that, even though they blank out, they still want to engage in insider trading. That is really phenomenal. So I think term limits, and that will take care of the insider trading also.
Anantatmula. Now, as I understand it, I think we want to move now to the audience questions. Before we get to our closing remarks, we are going to be taking 3 audience questions. That's right. Do we have any questions on that side of the room? Any questions for the stage? Would you like a microphone? Sure, I can repeat it. Yep. All of the illegals pouring into the country, he asks, and the effort to get them to register to vote, how do you think you're going to get a fair election in November? Ms. Anantatmula, we'll start with you. We have 2 minutes allotted for the answer to this question.
I think that our governors must engage in fair election process because illegal are being, that's what the Democrats are best at. The moment you are here, that's exactly what they do, whether you are there or not, but whether you're a citizen or not, they are trying to enroll you and register you as a voter because they don't believe in voter ID. If you have a driver's license, having them to vote. I think that must stop. And I think thanks to Governor Youngkin in 2022, the way he made those efforts at the polling places, it was phenomenal. We were able to control, and I think we must keep our eyes open all the time, and we as citizens must engage volunteering. We are always outnumbered at the polls, at the polling places, and even as poll watchers, we are outnumbered 10 to 100. That is the ratio. That's how aggressive the Democrats are. We need to do our part by volunteering to be poll watchers.
Ms. Anantatmula, thank you. Your answer, sir.
In terms of election integrity, every single state needs to be hyper-focused on election integrity. And we need Republicans to be in those election offices. And I know in Loudoun we're recruiting for people to serve in our electoral offices to help manage elections. So step one, volunteer to help. And we need to do that at every single state level. I served on the Republican legal team that monitored elections back in 2023 here in Loudoun County so that we could ensure the integrity of those elections, the integrity and security of those elections. So that's process. In terms of the border and the illegal immigrants, we need to shut down the border. We must secure the border. We must focus on taking care of these on the legal immigrants need to be deported, and they should not be allowed to vote. And I know some are starting to consider letting illegal immigrants or letting immigrants who aren't citizens to vote. And under the constitutions of most states and the United States, they're not allowed to vote. And in New York, the New York court said immigrants cannot vote if they're not citizens. So we have to rely on the judicial system. We have to rely on election in states. And third, and most importantly, Republicans need to turn out to vote. We have seen a lack of Republican turnout in election after election. We saw it in 22 and we saw it in 23. We need Republicans to turn out to vote because if you don't vote, we can't win. Thank you.
Mr. Isaac, your 2 minutes, sir.
To your question, sir, we have a little bit different dynamic in Virginia and the 10th District than, say, Arizona. In Arizona, we talk about illegal immigrants, right? And let's just hit on that for a second, folks. We have more information about lawful gun owners than we do about these knuckleheads kind of trying to infiltrate across the border. In the special ops community, we call it squirting. These guys squirt into the United States, right? So you can use that one as you like. In terms of we are the beacon of the world when it comes to democracy and voting. And that word democracy is a very interesting word to an immigrant. They hear democracy, oh, I need to be a Democrat, right? We should be using terms like a republic, right? So of having fair elections, I'm not sure. I think I'm probably the only one in this room who was in Iraq, in Baghdad, for the first election since Saddam fell and the Ba'ath Party was destroyed or eliminated. Seeing these people, Baghdad Iraqis, coming out with their finger that had an ink stain on it because they were authenticating their vote. We are the beacon for that. We need to ensure that our election system is not compromised. We've tried to use technology. I'm not sure how, I'm a technology advocate, I'm not sure how that works, how that's really working for us. When there's questions, when there's doubt, these are the types of information, operational type of infiltration that our adversaries are trying to impart on us. Okay, these are the things coming Russia, our adversaries getting into our minds, how we think, how we feel. Do we trust these systems? Thank you.
Mr. Isaac, thank you very much. I understand now we're going to take a question from somewhere in the middle of the room. If somebody.
Yeah, so what do you think of the jobs that Mike Johnson is doing? Do you support him to vacate?
What do you think of the job that Speaker Mike Johnson is doing, and do you support the current motion to vacate? It's not pushed all the way to the end, but Marjorie Taylor Greene does have it hanging over his head right now. We'll start again at the end. Sir, Mr. Isaac, your 2 minutes.
Great. I do support the Speaker. I think what Representative Greene is attempting to do again is what I've been routinely talking to constituents about is we need to end the bullhorns on both sides of the spectrum and get back to doing your job. The American public expect Congress to do their job. How do you do the job? It's to make and meet all of your needs within the district as citizens, but also to figure out how to move forward. And sometimes that is about negotiation. That is about compromise. But that does not mean that we compromise as conservatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clancy, your time, sir.
So, in terms of the Speaker, as a member of Congress, before I decide who I'm going to vote for Speaker, I want to sit down and meet with him personally, and his agenda, and talk about his commitment to our principles. You know, as a senior executive, I've hired a lot of people, and I don't hire them without a face-to-face interview. I want to know that person. I want to see if they're going to be good for our organization. I want to understand if they're going to be productive for our organization. And I would do the same thing in Congress. I'm not in Congress right now. When I get to Congress, I will sit down with the Speaker and try to understand what his principles are and what his commitments are. And if the Speaker ultimately doesn't fulfill his obligations, if he fails the party, if principles, then you have a motion to vacate. But it's premature for me now to sit here on the outside, having never met the Speaker, to prejudge him until I have a chance to sit down and talk to him face to face and understand his positions. You want a member of Congress who's going to be deliberative and thoughtful and not just go off the handle to get a tweet or to go on Fox News. You want someone who's going to work for you and work for solutions that are guided by our principles and by our Constitution. And that's what's key to restoring America, getting back to the fundamentals of our Constitution, getting foundational beliefs that are the core of this country. So I'm not into rash judgments. I'm into a deliberative process, and in Congress, it starts with meeting your fellow members, talking with them, understanding their principles, understanding the agenda, and then seeing how they. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. Ms. Anantatmula, what do you think of the job Speaker Johnson is doing? Do you support the motion to vacate?
For Mr. Johnson to be there, it's a tough place to be. He cannot convince or make any man from his own party happy. But at the end of the day, we need to get the work done. It's all about effective communication and negotiation. Sometimes you have to negotiate down. I am an America First candidate. What's best for this country is what has to happen in the Congress, and that's our primary duty. Sometimes we negotiate and give and take from our colleagues. Sometimes we have to give and take with the leadership. Are we willing to sit and negotiate and give and take with all our colleagues and leadership, and to one on the same footing, to have the same understanding, and to move forward united? If we can agree to disagree for the better cause, and we must agree to disagree and move forward with better results.
Thank you, Ms. Anantatmula. We'll take a third question.
I'm going to take it from Jared. Okay, go ahead. One thing to remember is that you're a representative. You will be a representative of District 10 and the citizens of District 10. So I'm very interested in what do you feel, what is the big challenge that you want to address to support
Okay, the question is specifically for District 10, as a member of Congress, what do you identify as the big issues, and how would you work towards resolving those for this district? Manga Anantatmula.
Parental rights. Foremost and the most important thing for me to bring back parental rights. As a mother raising my child 30 years ago when I came, when my son was exposed to family life education, I had to make a decision as a mother. Do I allow my son to take that course? Used to, and I sat my son in the library and read books to him, and I allowed and encouraged other parents who thought like me, and we did. And I was labeled as, the mom, the rebel mom, and that was the label that they gave me. But you have to be the parental rights, you will be a rebel, and you will give that power to parents. That's what I would do.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anantatmula. Mr. Clancy, sir, your time.
So I've had the opportunity for the last 6 months since I kicked off this campaign in October to talk to a lot of voters. I went all over, down to Rappahannock, throughout Fauquier, throughout Prince William, and from one end of Loudoun County to the other. And I've met them in groups, and I've gone door to door. And I'll tell you, through that informal polling process, the number one issue is the border. People want to see that border secured, and I highlighted that earlier. That is the number one priority, is to deal with the massive illegal immigration, to deal with the crime, to deal with the human trafficking, to deal with the fentanyl that's in our schools right here in Loudoun County. The second issue that people highlight is the economy, because families are struggling here in Loudoun County. If you want to buy $100 of groceries, it's going to cost you at least, from 4 years ago, it's going to cost you at least $130. Why? Because grocery prices are up over 20%, and what we've seen is that people are using their credit cards to buy groceries. Credit cards record level, $1 trillion. So, and interest rates are almost 25%. That's a 45% uplift on your grocery bill when you spend $100. So actually it's $145, I miscalculated. So they want the economy addressed. They're struggling with the economy. Young people can't pay interest rates, rental rates are high. I've talked to people who say they're struggling to find a place to rent in Loudoun County. So the economy is the second priority issue. And the third issue, when you talk to parents, is the education system. People have fled the public schools, they've gone to private schools, schooling because of what's going on in our educational system. That's why I want parents' rights legislation. That's why I want to defund the DEI programs and the Department of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. Well, we've got. Well, Mr. Isaac, sir, your views on the specific needs of the 10th District.
Yeah. I'll use an old adage, it's the economy, stupid. And it is. I had a conversation recently with Sheriff Chapman, and I asked him, why do our sheriff deputies district? Why do they live in Frederick, or why do they live in Prince William County? Why do our first responders and our teachers, okay, who are really doing the yeoman's work? I get thanked all the time, thank God, for my service. It's teachers. My son-in-law is a teacher. They are not compensated. They are overburdened and so forth. But they don't live in the district. They don't even live in the county because they can't afford it. I will agree with Mike on a point here in terms of going to the supermarket and put things back or look at their shopping list. And actually, I never had a shopping list. My wife always had a shopping list. She's pushed it on me, buy what's on the list. And I'm the guy that pulls the cereal and the sweets and stuff because I got a sweet tooth. But I'm watching folks behave in a different way. I started COVID, right? And in terms of how they spend their money, that liquid cash running out and putting it and growing their debt. But I find it unique, the way that I grew up in terms of local law enforcement and teachers living in the community and work in, they can't afford to do it. So we need to get a handle on how they're compensated and work on economic, setting the conditions economically. And we can do that from a legislative standpoint, supporting the Commonwealth, where that money is brought to those types of folks. Because if they don't stay in the county, in the district, all the other things we're working on kind of falls to the wayside.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Isaac. So to keep with the tradition of how we've been going back and forth across the stage, Mr. Isaac, we'll begin on your end of the stage. You are allotted each 2 minutes for your closing statements to make your appeal to the audience here, which will, of course, we'll get to more details coming up, but there's a vote here about how you think the performances went today. So beginning right there, Mr. Isaac, sir, your time.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to say thank you. Thank you to my wife for supporting me, not through this journey and through my entire career. And I have to be honest, kind of breaking a little tradition here. These chairs are just so inviting. Been fighting to sit back and recline and get comfortable. But as I said in the onset, I'm on that pathway to become one. I like solving problems. Washington, D.C. is not necessarily the place to go solve problems. It's a very utopian idea and construct. It requires hard work. I study. I read. That's core fundamentals. I am scared to death of what our adversaries are doing, how they're getting into our minds. Thank you, sir. How they're getting into our economy. The Russians, a number of years ago, went to China, unclassified, America up. China sat back. Why would we do that? We own them. That is disingenuous. If we do not change our behavior, if we do not fix things, then we should call up the UK, number 10 Downing Street, and ask them for their after-action review of when they realized they were no longer number one. Because that's the road we're headed if we don't fix our problems right now. I appreciate your time to get to know me. I look forward to meeting with you and speaking with you after this. Be brief and be.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. Mike Clancy, your closing statement, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince, and thank you all for being here tonight, this morning. I'm Mike Clancy, and I'm running for Congress to restore America. And this 10th district seat is an open seat. This is to win. And win we must, because every one of my possible Democrat opponents is a radical, progressive extremist. Think Rashida Tlaib and Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi. And they have one goal: 4 more years of their radical, divisive, destructive agenda. We have chaos at our southern border. We have families struggling in this economy. We have fentanyl poisoning our community. It is time to restore America. And you deserve a member of Congress who shows up to serve you and to work for you in the United States Congress. And I have showed up for this community time and time. I will show up for you in the United States Congress. I'm the candidate in this race that's the conservative and that has the skill set and the experience and the expertise to win in November. I'm the lawyer in this race. I've studied constitutional law. I have experience, and I served on a Republican legal team monitoring elections. I'm the candidate in this race that's been a senior executive, leading a team responsible for a multi-billion-dollar business that focuses on national security. And I had the honor of serving on Governor Youngkin's technology and cybersecurity transition team when he was elected. Radical left. As a commentator with Newsmax and the Daily Caller. I will win. I will beat the Democrat. And I will go to work for you on day one, and we'll restore America. Together we'll win, and together we'll restore America. And I need some. This morning, I want to ask for the honor of your vote and your support in the campaign. That's how we win. That's how we restore America. Thank you, and God bless.
Mike Clancy, thank you. And now for her closing remarks, Manga Anantatmula. Thank you.
Thanks for being The reason why I say I have to be your candidate to win this district in November is because I'm a legal immigrant and I know what the illegal immigrant issues are. There are 60% of Asian population that participate in civic life, and that is very, very bad. We have 55,000 Asians in this district, and imagine if 60% of us are not voting and not participating, and that's what I'm going to bring to table to improve just not the party, it's for the country. We cannot win without the Asian votes who are feeling abandoned. And I'm the one to bring, because I won the affirmative action for them. And I know I am the proven leader. I don't have to speak too much. Go on. That was created by artificial intelligence. Maybe I have forgotten the n number of things that I have done, but the artificial intelligence has picked up everything that I've done. And I am the true fighter. I don't give up. And you need a leader, not a politician. A proven leader not turn their back on you when you need them. I was the one with the vision that there was discrimination. And I fought against it because it's just not enough as Americans to read the Pledge of Allegiance. I actually stood up to fight to uphold allegiance, that equality for everybody. I'm a proven leader. You must vote just not for this district. You must vote for America first. You must vote for this country. I did not bring any of my followers or supporters. I thought people must make the judgment today for the country and not just for a candidate. That's what I would ask you. Thank you.
Manga Anantatmula, thank you very much. Our thanks to all of the candidates for your time today doing this candidate forum. I think people were able to learn quite a bit about you.